A lot of noise from these guys. Hi everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. Sorry. Hi everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola, and on this channel, basically we talk about personal finance, investment, and the economy. So if this is something that you know you need to work on, because most people do, then I encourage you to subscribe, hit the notification button, and stick with us. So today we'll be talking about news from a global, African, and Nigerian perspective. So just listen in. The first news that we'll be talking about to be from from BP, right? So BP, of course, I can see people listening in. Please say hi. I would love to connect with you. Say hi, and once you say hi in the comments, I'll pop it up on the screen also. So BP found just recently, BP is British Petroleum, right? That's the full whatever for that BP, and they're a company based in the UK, and they just found a massive oil block in Brazil, off the shores of Brazil. Now, why am I highlighting this news? Because it's so interesting. Hi, Miriam. It's so interesting to see how things have changed in just a short period. Like literally, a couple of years ago, BP was going green. Like, let's go green. Let's save the whales. Let's do the wind farm, solar panels, and we're putting money into it. And they were, and basically, all oil companies really were positioning for green energy. Environmental sustainability, all that English, right? But now they've switched back to drill, baby, drill, with no shame, like just doing a whole 180. And it's quite interesting to see. And but why are they doing it? Why? Because they have come to see that oil, at least in the short term, the near term, drilling is bringing in the money. And not just is there a plan for it to bring in the money, or are they positioned for it to bring in more money? They are saying that, oh, they're going to be paying dividends to their shareholders. There's going to be a lot of money being made. Everybody should be happy. In response to this, the stock price went up by about 1 to 2% ish. Not entirely exciting, but for a company that had been in a lull, I think that is, like, at least you can say it went green. Like, yeah, the stock price went green. But what really is the situation here, right? The first thing to highlight is the impact of politics and the global political environment on businesses. Now, once the political environment changes their posture, eventually businesses that are trying to stay afloat would align. And that's literally what we're seeing here. They are trying to stay afloat and they would align. Now, whether it suits the future or not, we can't say, but they would align. That's the first thing to highlight. Now, in terms of this actual finding, one of the things, so whilst it's exciting for their investors, there's actually a catch. What's the catch? The catch is that the stock of oil that they found has a lot of CO2, which is quite toxic, right? So they actually need to figure out how to get to that oil without killing the whole world in the process, right? So there's that conversation that needs to be had. That's one. That's from the strategy perspective. And actually, the way they will announce news and later realize that, oh, this can't work. But that's one major snag to this announcement, right? I guess that's why the stock price didn't go up as high as maybe 3-5%. Yeah, because there's still that snag. Sorry, my throat is a little dry today. But then, even with that, right, what do we think would happen to the stock? So it's a balancing act. The first thing is that before now, because BP, for example, had been going green and shouting green, right? ESG funds would have invested, because when you meet a certain criteria, they would say, oh, that these are the kind of companies we can put our money in. If you don't know what an ESG fund is, it's basically a fund that invests in companies that are aligned with a greener world, right? Greener earth, right? If that's the word, right? So BP was aligning. Now they have changed their path. What that means is that once it's confirmed that BP doesn't meet up to the standards and the criteria, they're going to have to sell BP stock. That's on one side. Now, on the flip side, there are now people that are looking for dividend. They are looking for dividend pay. They're looking for higher prices or valuation. If we can see, for example, that BP is able to get past the CO2 issue, they would come in. So you see, for when you see the headline, it looks like, oh, it's all good news, but no, it's not entirely. And this is what this sessions or this recordings are about, for you to actually break it down to understand what's really happening and what you should be looking out for. So the thing you should be looking out for, number one, is how they are able to fix this CO2 issue. Number two, how ESG investors are going to be, ESG funds are going to respond to this. Number three, there are going to be protests, because this CO2 issue is a real one. If there are going to be protests, litigations, because you can't just keep drilling, right? Or maybe you can, we don't know. Let the courts decide. So there could be litigations that would slow this down. But I think in the bigger picture, right, we are seeing a trend where there is a big voice shouting, drill, baby, drill, and that voice is very loud, right? And you see that what we might see is that other oil companies might take that same line of action, and there's a lot more drilling going down, which may not be good for the economy. But in summary, what are we saying? BP has found oil, the stock price moved up a little bit. There are concerns around the CO2 emission, the level of CO2 emission from that particular finding. There are people that will be happy at this announcement and buy the stock, and there are some that would sell the stock, right? But for you as an investor, what are you looking out for? The sustainability of it all. If, for example, one big win as an investor, because I mean, you might not be so inclined towards green and decide if they're going to make money, I will go with them. So one big thing, especially if you're in the UK, to watch out for is how they're able to get past this CO2 issue. They're going to partner with the company, but we have to follow that news and what happens there to see if it is really resolved, and then we can jump in. um Hi, Miriam. Good morning. Thanks for joining in. Then off to the next news. The next news is out of Africa. Now, I highlighted it. It was the SEC of Nigeria that flagged over $2 billion in suspicious crypto deals across West Africa. Now, I like this news and I wanted to highlight because there's a lot of young people that are in this cryptocurrency space. Now, what we have found is that cryptocurrency has actually been used to defraud people a lot. Why? Because the nature of it and the way it is set up is that it is very confidential, right? Meaning you don't know who's on the other side. Do you get? It's very easy for it not for a transaction not to be transparent end to end, right? But what we have found, and that people are not really talking about, is that you can have one stable coin that is set up, blah blah blah, and they just shut down. Pam. Or one wallet system, blah 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 blah. After people have they built trust, blah 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 blah, you just realize that the total value of bitcoins in it is blah blah blah. Next thing, it just wipes out to zero. Somebody has moved it, pam, and we can't find anybody, right? But the reason why those things can happen is because there's not as much regulation as there needs to be. There's not as much transparency as there needs to be, whatever transparency looks like. But what we are finding right now is that, for example, in the US, there's now a law in place. I think it's called the Genius Act, if I'm not wrong, where you have to what's it called? You have to for you to create a stable coin, you must be a licensed entity. Those are the kind of things that people need. And I think as West Africa and as Africa, this is where we need to be getting to. I say that because the impact of loss is more when there's not that much money, right? So if you want to say poverty capital of the world, developed South, that's Africa, right? So we really can't afford to be throwing money away, right? Such that for us, when we see regulation coming up around cryptocurrency, especially as young people, we should be wary of fighting it, if you get what I mean, because it is necessary. Because this 2.1 billion, if you read the actual news, it is talking about transactions that people's money got lost, people's coins disappeared. There's a lot of that, and then there's also a lot of money laundering slash what's it called slash terrorist financing going on under the guise of cryptocurrency is coded. So I suspect that as the SEC is making these announcements, you would see that they'll come up with additional policies to strengthen the system. And then because they're speaking to West Africa, what you might find is that they would have to work with other bodies or the regulatory bodies in those countries. Why am I saying this? Because cryptocurrency is such a thing right now, especially with the younger generation, especially with people in their 20s, 30s, 20s, early 30s ish, right? It's such a thing where you have to start thinking that you actually need regulation. This freedom is maybe when you lose money that you understand that needs to be, you need to be able to find people. You actually need to be able to find people. So I think this is something that we should all be aware of. But then the older demography shouldn't run away from cryptocurrency, and I think that's where I want to land this. Because regulation is coming. Also because if you're in your 40s, your 50s, right? Even your 60s. In the next 20 to 30 years, right? These things are going to be there. Like they're going to be there. So it's just imagine the way you have a parent right now who does not know how to use internet banking. Yeah, that's how you would be. If you don't get it with it right now, that's actually how you will be. So how does that make you feel? If you are in your 40s, your 50s, that's actually how you would be. So that's why you should be watching or listening or following my channel so that you are aware of the trends, right? So you position yourself. But literally, like I said, imagine that grandparent, that's your parent in the 70s, 80s who does not know how to use internet banking, or who does not know how to use a phone, or struggles, or calls you to come and that's where you're great. And then the final news. Okay, just to even okay, yes, I remember. Final news. Okay, let me see. Hi E. Thank you for saying hi. So final news outside of Nigeria and from Nigeria. The final news is from Nigeria. Now this one actually struck me and I'll tell you why. So the news is that MTN, Airtel make trillions as Nigerians choose data even when hungry. Now, let me tell you why this news struck me. So, we are actually hosting a summer camp next week, a virtual summer camp for young adults between the ages of 16 and 21. Now, in our communication with parents, because we are building a community of parents in that demographic to give them like learnings, blah, 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 what you can do, conversations, blah, 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 and all that. And so part of the questions and there was an email that went out and we were like, okay, tell us your greatest fear with your child. And literally a mother responded saying that her 18-year-old son in university would use all his money for food to buy data and would literally be hungry and be calling her for more money. And what he used that money for was data. And that data was not to upload videos he edited that somebody is paying him for. It was to scroll on TikTok. There is a problem. Guys, there is a problem. So part of the whatever was okay, he signed up for the for the summer camp, and I mean you can show the information after this, and he signed up for the summer camp. But why did I highlight this news? Because consumer behavior is changing. Data, mobile, all these things, they are becoming more and more a part of our lives. Whilst it is our responsibility as viewers of this channel, as matured minds, as growing people, as people that are improving and developing themselves daily, to be aware of it and draw the line. The fact is that with every new trend that is exciting, there will be a herd mentality in that direction or a herd movement in that direction. What does that mean? My question to you is this: why do you not have shares in the telecoms companies? It is so logical. It is so logical. You can see how people can forget to have breakfast, but and go out and they can leave. You can leave your food that you packed up at home and not come back home. But if you leave your phone, you will come back home to pick it up. But you are waiting for a soothsayer to tell you that you should have stocks of telecoms companies, at least in Nigeria. I don't know what you want to say. So the logic when it comes to investing and understanding what to and where to invest is, where would people buy? What will people buy? Where will people buy? What will they buy? Why will they buy it? Why would they keep buying it? If you can see an asset or a product that you know that people would keep buying, right? Because number one, the product is good, the product is useful. You know the way needs and wants, you say food, shelter, clothing, add data to it. So why are you not? Explain. What else are you looking for? What are you waiting for? What else are you looking for us to tell you before you know what to do? Do you understand? Why are you not in some banking stocks? Why? Because of 2008 financial meltdown. Yeah. Okay, oh, no problem. I rest my case. Now, the final news out of Nigeria is that Lagos state government declares 176 estates illegal over unapproved layouts. Now, this one was quite interesting for me because I went with a friend to check out a property in one of the listed estates like 2 weeks ago, before this announcement was made. And so when we saw the list and we saw that same estate there, it was like, oh my goodness, right? Now, the good thing about it was that I was very sure that she would not have been caught in that situation. Why? Because there's something called due diligence. There's something called due diligence. I would like to implore everyone, as much as we all feel like, oh, the Lagos state property market is not properly regulated, there are lots of loopholes, blah, blah, blah. The thing that actually saves you from this thing is to pay a lawyer to do your due diligence, to know what is supposed to be ready, what documents you're supposed to have, or at least have been filed. So what literally happens sometimes that, oh, governor's consent, we would request for it eventually. No, you should at least have filed for it, right? And then it's in the works, right? So that people know that you're on the journey. If you get what I mean. Because for you to move file, you would have met some some what's it called? Some requirements. And we can go to Alausa and see that your name is there, you are in the works, right? But you just go, you enter a property and you start developing without any of this documentation. And then people just buy because the flyer look good, the location is fine. No, the proof that you own that property is in the document, not that you live in it. And it's very important. We literally had an investment opportunity. And I mean, I think this thing is so pervasive where we just go with trust. We had an investment opportunity in the club in Nairobi, and people had indicated interest. And I put it to you, after we got the letters of offers for members of the club, um, we had told them, okay, we are going to do our due diligence based on this letter of offer. Our lawyers will get in touch with you. Before we had even finished engaging lawyers, signing engagement letter, somebody in the club had transferred their own first deposits. And I called the person, like, you can't do this. What if we find out that this thing is not regulated, this thing doesn't meet up? What if? Do you get? So I know that Nigerians do a lot of things on trust level, which is good, but it can literally get you into trouble. The list of properties on the properties on this listing, at the minimum 100 million naira. I don't think there's anybody that really wants to throw away 100 million or have the state government demolish their property or find out that it's on the right of way or find out that it's not supposed to be an area for water management. You just don't want that to happen. So whilst we have some things that we should hold Lagos State for, because these are 176 estates, not properties, they didn't just appear overnight. But you, as an individual, knowing that there's madness in the air, you need to protect yourself and you need to do your due diligence. You need to pay for that lawyer, because the amount you would pay that lawyer cannot be compared to the capital you would contribute to buy that property. So if you lose, so which one would you rather lose? That you would get the lawyer and find out everything was good, or that you would not get the lawyer and find out that you bought a 100 million naira house that is going to be demolished? Which one do you want? I ask you. So yes, finally, if you have any thoughts around that, I'd love to hear that. And I want to also share that we have a summer camp coming up this week. Yeah, this week actually, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's so exciting. We have all sorts of things planned out. Let me just show. Um, so we have a summer camp. It's for 16 to 21-year-olds. My face is not showing anymore. Can you see me? So yes, you have a summer camp for 16 to 21-year-olds. It's basically for 3 days, 3 hours every day. We have people that have signed in from the UK, from the US, from Canada, from Nigeria. Those are, and then from Kenya. That was so exciting. From Kenya. But what are we talking about? You see this child, that a young adult that I spoke about, right? That is making wrong financial decisions. We might just call it data. We might just call it, oh, because their parents have money. But these things, they build up over time, right? They actually build up. So what you need to do is, for your child, where are their gaps? What do they need to fix? Now, this summer camp is different because we're going to talk about money, how to make money, how to manage money, and how to multiply it. But beyond that, there are things around it that we are going to be discussing. For example, on day one, we're going to have a breakout session on with three streams: corporate career, entrepreneurship, and creatives, because creatives have become a big thing. And for creative, I'm particularly excited because the lady that's coming to talk about monetizing the creative industry, she's a poet. So she's not even an actor or a musician. She's a poet. So everybody that is thinking of creative space, how do you really position yourself? What are the things that you need to put together? Right? So that's what they want. Then day two is quite interesting. It's about managing money. But you agree with me that managing money is where the real problem is. And I say that because there are things that make you make the decisions that you are making, if you understand what I mean. So, for example, a child that always wants to be on the internet and cannot stop, even though he knows that this is money for food and I will be hungry. There is somewhere between an identity issue, there is social pressure. There are all those things around it. So, for example, managing money, we're going to have someone talk about managing pressure, working in a stressful environment, because these things, once they trigger bad behavior, and those bad behavior shows in money. Then on the last day, we talked about cryptocurrency. Today, we're also going to be talking about cryptocurrencies, trading, and how to invest, right? If you have a word in this demography, I encourage you to register them. You don't want to miss this. 16 to 21-year-olds, this Friday, this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, 4 p.m. GMT +1. You don't want to miss it. Tell a friend about it. If you want more information, drop in the comments and we'll be sure to share with you. On this note, I say a hearty goodbye. Have a lovely rest of the weekend. Bye.